Future Proof is sponsored by Equipping Young Adults for Life, inspiring student resilience, championing hope.
Hello and welcome back from the break. Thank you so much for joining me, Sarah Hopwood, as I continue Future Proof TV and talking about negative mindsets that don't serve us. And in the first, I was talking about the third negative mindset that I'm covering at the moment, and that is the feeling that we can all have sometimes. It is not my fault. And I was very, very careful in the first half to say, I do know that there are people watching where you have had things done or said to you, or not done and said to you, that should never have been done, that were out of your control, and they were not your fault. You did not ask for what has come your way, and it's certainly not a judgment over who you are. And obviously I'm talking about abuse and mistreatment and neglect. So please know I'm not ridiculing that, and I'm not saying that's a truth very much about what you've been through. But what I am relating to is the mindset that can stay with us of feeling it's not my fault and feeling a victim all the time. And last time we were talking, I said, your past does not determine your future. It does not define your future. And I talked about a loved one too. And, we all have friends and family who we care a lot about. And I had quite a heavy conversation with somebody I love dearly. And, you could hear them desperate, but also I could almost agree, going, yes, I know you've tried everything. I've watched you. I've seen it. But I actually pushed back and I said, but I will not allow you to give up. I will not allow you to believe that this is it. I will not allow the mindset of it is not my fault help you stay where you are. And the reason why is because if I do sit alongside you, if I do hold your hand and agree with you that it is not your fault and basically there's nowhere to go, then I am, along with you, depriving you of any sense of hope. It's almost leaving you, or leaving this person I love, nowhere to go. And I just refuse to do it. So we've all had highs and lows. We've all, and obviously different levels of that, I know. And all I'm sharing now is something that helped me, which is what I was talking about in the first half. So it's a paper written by a gentleman called Julian Rotter, an American psychologist. I believe it was published in 1954. And his critics said that it was far too extreme. But when I've talked about it before, I've always said you might agree with that. But I think you'll also agree with me that the guy has a point. And the reason why I say that is because I, generally speaking, am quite good at being an internal locus control thinker, but very often I could also go up into the external locus control thinking platform. But when I heard what the guy said and I understood it, I catch myself out. There's a great saying, catch yourself out, get out the way of yourself. And I try and make sure that I come back down to the internal locus of control. So what does it all mean? So if we use COVID as an example, external locus control, COVID happened and it was out of our control and it was not our fault. This is not my fault. And then the external thinker will then say COVID has happened. So they go into what we call an automatic response, which we all know what that is. If I asked you what is the automatic response to COVID-19 hitting, all of us could link what those behaviours are, from the devastation to the worry to all sorts of things. I think we would all be able to together list what those auto responses would be, and then the outcomes would then come from the responding. That's where the outcomes come from. They come from the responding. So the person who is an external thinker says COVID-19 happened and I'm where I am today because of COVID-19. And the problem with this is these thinkers are problem focused, they are not solution focused, they are blame focused. I've seen them in the public sector and private sector, and indeed, small and large, but I've seen business owners in a way like this too. So we're all capable of doing it, but you never want a business full of external thinkers. And they operate in the circle of concern. So what is the difference between the external locus of control? Locus of control is just Latin for place of control, where you feel the control is in your life, and internal locus of control. These people will say, it's not my fault. That's the auto default. It's not my fault. So how can we take control of it? So it empowers us to be able to respond. And this is where we are able to respond. And Julian Rotter calls it the choice box. So, external stimulus, COVID-19 has happened. Instead of the external thinker going straight into response, these people dive straight down into the choice box. And they will say, out of my control, this has happened. So we can call it COVID. COVID has happened. So rather than auto response, they say, right. And the question here is, what can I influence? What can I influence? Many, many years ago, I did a presentation on I can and using a chair. And shortly afterwards, a great, great speaker, Richard Buchan, turned a whole business into the sentence, I can. It's a phenomenal sentence. What can I influence? And it's in this box that business owners, families, carers, the NHS, we saw massive decisions happening here where the NHS stopped and said, right, what can we do? And they didn't worry about what they couldn't do. And they did, and we've seen them, we've congratulated them, we've heard the list of all the things that they did in response to something that was not their fault. Once they made those choices, they then responded. And we've heard about that. We saw it. It was televised. People talked about it. Patients have given testimonials about it. And the response led to, and how often have we heard it, the NHS did not become overwhelmed. Had they not gone into this choice box, the NHS could have been sat up here with external thinkers. That external stimulus, COVID has happened, automatic responses, let's just keep doing what we've always done, and let's just work harder and go quicker, and let's just see if we can cope. And the outcome could well have been that the NHS was overwhelmed. So this is a really good example. And so Julian Rotter, if he was here today, he would say the NHS response in the UK thought like internal thinkers. They were solution focused, not problems. Didn't want to know about the problems, if you like, or solution focused, and they operated it in the circle of influence. And in that circle, you very much look around to see who can help you. Collaboration takes place here. Enabling others takes place here, because you go into survival mode. And so I just want to commend to you, when you have a negative mindset, it is not my fault. I always just said to my family, you can cry for a day. We can all cry for a day. If you can, seek help if you feel something wrong is happening that is out of your control. If you can't, so I'm thinking of people who have been held hostage before, and I've heard testimonials there, that it was staggering hearing the different ways the hostages thought about it. And the ones that actually mentally and physically survived after the event, the ones that got out, obviously we do know in those situations not everybody has survived, but the ones that did survive, if they thought effectively about all the things that they could influence and thought about them in a positive way. In other words, I've been taken hostage, I have a choice as to how I respond to this situation. The ones who made good decisions here are living a much more, if you like, healthy life post their trauma than those who are in that environment really struggled, just auto responded, and very often we just don't know what else to do. So that's not a criticism, and then the outcomes wouldn't have been so good. So with a heart that I hope you understand is just full of love and encouragement, please try not to think like a victim. Avoid the blame culture. If you are looking after someone who is really struggling, hold their hand, be with them, but don't let them give up. Move them away from the victim mentality and move them to a place where they feel able to respond. They move to a place of being response able. Do as I say, if you look on YouTube, if you Google Future Proof TV, you'll find me. You can subscribe to all of these programs, and I very much hope that you can join me next time when I will be working down my list and I'll be looking at another negative mindset. Take care.